Identity fraud, it's this thing that affects millions of us, right? It's like this constant hum of anxiety in the back of our minds. But here's the big question. When it comes to actually fighting it, does our government have a real coordinated plan? Or is it just a bunch of separate battles? Let's dig into that, because the reality of the war on fraud is pretty fragmented. Okay, so to really get a handle on what's going on, let's do a little comparison. We're going to look at how the US government has responded to two totally different but really significant national threats. And wow, the contrast tells you everything you need to know.
So on one hand, you have the 9/11 attacks. The government's response to that was monumental. A complete reorganization, right? They created a whole new cabinet-level department, Homeland Security, to coordinate everything. But then you look at fraud, a threat that, let's be honest, personally affects way more of us day to day. And the response? It's been this patchwork, just a bunch of separate efforts all over the place.
But, okay, there might be a glimmer of hope on the horizon. There's a new bill in Congress that sounds like it's finally going to bring everyone together. The big question is, does it actually live up to that promise? All right, here it is. H.R. 7270. It's called the Stop Identity Fraud and Identity Theft Bill. And I mean, on the surface, that sounds perfect, right? Sounds like exactly the big, comprehensive solution we've been waiting for.
And you don't have to look far to see what they're aiming for. The official purpose literally says it's to establish a government-wide approach. I mean, that phrase right there, government-wide, sets a super high bar for what this thing is supposed to do.
But here's our first little clue that government-wide might be more of an idea than a reality. Right out of the gate, the bill gets sent to 3 different House committees for review. 3. That alone tells you just how complicated and spread out this whole issue is.
Okay, so what's really in this bill? Let's pop the hood and see what it actually does beyond the fancy title.
So here's the thing. This bill isn't some massive top-down reorganization like with Homeland Security. Nope. Its main job is to create a grant program. It's run by the Treasury Department, and its whole purpose is to send federal money down to the states so they can beef up their own anti-fraud systems. It's a bottom-up approach, really.
And this is where it gets pretty cool, actually. The money is aimed at some of the most modern challenges we're facing right now. We're talking about developing secure mobile driver's licenses, fighting off deepfake attacks. It's a direct investment in bringing our state-level identity systems into the 21st century.
But, and this is a big but, the bill is also super specific about what this money can't be used for. States can't force you to get a mobile driver's license or get rid of your plastic one. It also explicitly says the funds can't go toward issuing licenses to unauthorized immigrants. And you know what's completely missing? Any mention of the Real ID Act. It just sidesteps that whole thing. So everything we've seen so far is about the Treasury Department and the states, which kind of makes you wonder, if this is supposed to be government-wide, who's not at the party? And the answer to that question is, well, a lot of really big players. This is where that fragmented defense we talked about really comes into sharp focus. Let's run through who's missing. First up, law enforcement. You've got the Department of Justice and the FBI, the main federal agency that actually investigates this stuff. They aren't really a part of this bill's plan. Then there's the Department of Homeland Security. This is a big one, because that's where the Secret Service is. They have a huge role in fighting financial crimes, but they're on a totally separate track.
Okay, what about the consumer side of things? The Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, that's the main place you go to report identity theft. Guess what? Not included here either.
And this one's wild. The Social Security Administration, the agency that literally manages our social security numbers, which are basically our national ID, they're also operating in their own little world.
Let's jump back to law enforcement for a second. The U.S. Postal Inspection Service. These guys are the OGs when it comes to mail fraud. They're also working on their own.
And to finish up on the consumer protection front, you've got the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, another key watchdog, and another agency not included in this government-wide plan. So you see the pattern here, right? This is what we mean by a siloed approach. All of these powerful, important agencies are tackling a piece of the fraud puzzle, but they're doing it alone. They're in their own lanes with their own funding and their own missions. Okay, so who cares, right? It's just bureaucracy. But why does this actually matter in the real world? What's the problem with having all these agencies working in their own lanes?
Well, the problem is that these silos can create massive blind spots and inefficiencies. You could have agencies accidentally working against each other. There's no single unified game plan. And you better believe that sophisticated criminals are experts at finding and exploiting the gaps between all these different jurisdictions. Think about it. What happens if the Secret Service finds that a new state program, funded by this very Treasury bill, is actually making their job harder? Who's in charge then?
And that's what it all boils down to. It leaves us with a really big question. We know fraud is this huge, coordinated, and constantly changing threat. But when we look at how we're fighting back, are we really a single unified army? Or are we just a bunch of separate garrisons, each one left to defend its own little piece of the wall?